Hey, what's up? So, back again, and today we're going to do a review of The Veil. So, I'm going to, first thing first, I'm going to say I held off on this review for a couple months because when this initially launched, there was a lot of word of bugs being out there and people having difficulty actually getting this mod to function at all. So, um, basically, playing 2 months after launch, this is valued at 600 credits on the Creation Store. To start this, all you need to do is be level 10 and go to the Andromas system here, and going to any planet should trigger it. My initial playthrough, I did get an RNG proc where I had combat, but it resolves rather quickly after I eliminate the combat. I just travel to another planet in the system, and it does start right up. But I will say that I did enjoy this, and I think it's absolutely worth these 600 credits. But we're going to go through basically everything here and kind of assess all things, including defects that I did uncover through my playthrough. So, first thing first, I will probably just to clarify, this does have multiple paths you can take through this quest, or at least it appeared that it did. I only explored one path through. My playthrough was roughly 2.5 hours, so what I would say is this is like in between a larger side quest and a faction quest. It wasn't quite the length of a faction quest, but it did get pretty close to the length of a faction quest. So it's definitely one of the longer quests available in the Creation Store. Actually, of what I've played so far in the Creation Store, this is the longest playthrough for a quest mod, being at 2.5 hours, and I did not take any of the other paths, so there is some replay value there. Probably could get a good like 5 to 6 hours out of this. Also, other things to mention, at the end of this quest there is a procedurally generated quest that you can do with the Aegis group in the UC, and there is also a companion you can have. So the main character from this particular quest line is possible to recruit her as a companion after everything is said and done with this particular quest. So what does this quest actually do? You know, you go to a location, it sends you and it starts you on your kind of like merry way. It does go through several different points of interest. Some of them are brand new, some of them are utilizing assets that already exist to create brand new items, but I'll go into a little bit more detail after we get through the intro. So overall, you know, being it's a 2.5 hour quest, you get a procedurally generated quest afterwards, plus you also get a companion. This is for 600 credits. I think this is a very fair price for this particular mod. But we're going to go ahead and take a look at a little bit of the voice acting and whatnot from here. So to go into the voice acting, there's actually several voice acted characters throughout this, but I'm going to go ahead and just show 3 of them. Just show very short clips. I don't want to ruin any of the storyline for anyone, but I want to show how diverse the cast of characters is within this, and the quality of voice acting that we do have within here. I think there might be one of the characters might be AI voice acted, but I was unable to tell which one in particular, so I mean that's kind of a good thing. I'm not sure how you feel about AI voice acting, but I think if deployed by an actual voice actor, it's a tool in the handbag. deployed by an amateur, it's probably not going to be as good. So that's kind of my views on like AI. I think of it as more of a tool and less of a replacement for real people doing work. But let's go ahead and take a look at Emily Archer. She's going to be the main character, and that's going to be the first bit here.
The intelligence agency of the United Colonies, handling matters that require a certain level of discretion. Recent events have led me back to this facility, but the door behind us has me locked out. Arden Quill, who took over this place, was not willing to allow me access. Let's just say things got a bit heated, and he took off with the key. I hate to ask more of you, but could I persuade you to help? I can't disclose details right now, but I'm offering you a choice. Walk away now, or take a leap into the unknown with me. Will you help me retrieve the key? Excellent. Here are the coordinates to Quill's place. Return with the key, and I'll ensure your efforts are well compensated.
So first thing I'd like to say is the voice actor for Emily Archer did an absolutely stellar job on this. In fact, if you told me that this was a mod, I probably would not believe you. It fits in well with the BGS voice acting. The voice acting itself, very stellarly done. The next part I want to kind of go over is I'll leave the character unnamed, but there is a villain which is voice acted, and I have not experienced this yet in any of the Creations mods where we have these voiced villains kind of bringing a little bit more character to the villain themselves. So I just have a very short clip from one of the villains of this quest line, and there's multiple villains, so very well done job. But let's get into it, and we'll listen to it and see how the voice acting
So the little wolf comes willingly into the den. We thought we had snuffed out your flame in that cave. Your heart still beats. Consider that mercy. Your persistence merely postpones the inevitable. Our vision will be realized. There's nothing the United Colonies or the Free Star Collective can do about it.
Yet again, nice with the voice acting. I also think the writing there was particularly good. It definitely grabbed my attention and kept me kind of focused on the storyline. Sometimes, you know, we see a little bit of subpar writing, and it can kind of be difficult to stay focused on a storyline when the writing's not fully up to steam or it gets overly wordy. But, you know, to the point, kind of a little bit poetic in his delivery. But it was excellently delivered, and in my opinion, I think it was pretty good writing as well, bringing in the Free Star and the UC in that. But we're going to go ahead and look at one last character. This is also another major character of this quest line, and I just want to show kind of like the cinematic nature of this interaction that the player's going to have with this character.
Hey, you. You're finally awake. That was a close call. You nearly crossed over. I'm Agent Blue with Aegis. We need to talk.
So, I think it was very cinematic, kind of like having you wake up on like that operating table, and did introduce the character well. Awesome voice acting as well. Everything was clear, the volume was correct. I have experienced in the past where, you know, volume's a little bit low on like the voice acting, and it doesn't quite mesh with the rest of the voice acting within the base game. But we're going to go ahead and get into a little bit of the locations that you are taken to in this game. So first, we're looking at, I believe this is part of the procedural generation. It's some kind of depot. I've been to it a couple times. I forget what it's called exactly, but it exists within the procedural generation. It's not entirely common. Like, I've been to it like a handful of times. It's not overly common. So I think this is a particularly good choice within if you're going to be selecting from the procedural generation to focus on some of the items that a lot of players might not have seen. I've seen everything in the procedural generation. I went through like the Starfield wiki and found every single one of them. So you're not going to do that with me. But like your average player, I would not consider myself the average player, but your average player, maybe at like level 40 or so, downloading a mod to maybe spend an evening kind of entertaining themselves with a quest line. This is a particularly good pick for a location to take someone to, because it's not particularly common. It's well designed within the base game, so it's not like boring or anything, and you know, a lot of people probably haven't seen it before. Although, what I will say, there was one particular location that they did pick. It is the abandoned mine, and I have levied this criticism in the past with modders picking that location to take people to. Why do I think the abandoned mine is terrible? The Andrasia quest, the initial one where you meet her, it's always at the abandoned mine. Not to mention, the abandoned mine is also a location where you can potentially find an artifact. So when you're doing, there's basically two potential times that you can possibly be sent to the abandoned mine. And you know, if you've done, like, say, the main quest 2 or 3 times, where you've jumped through the Unity 2 or 3 times, you've probably seen the abandoned mine like 6 or 7 times. I actually did this whole entire quest in 2 playthroughs, and I broke it up because it was sending me to an abandoned mine, and I've probably been through the abandoned mine probably like 25 times. So beyond that criticism, I think they did fine with the rest of their picks in the procedural generation. But this is my word to the wise for modders. Do not ever pick anything out of the procedural generation that the main quest sends you to. There are a lot of locations that the main quest never sends you to in the procedural generation. I think the average player does not see these. They're not exploring as much in the procedural generation, so they're probably not seeing those extras. But the stuff in like the main quest, if there's like the completionists out there that are, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and get every single Starborn power up to level 10, stuff like that, they're going to see those procedurally generated points of interest that the main quest takes you to. They're going to see them dozens of times. So this is just my opinion. I could be wrong in this. I don't think I am, but I would highly refrain from picking any of those locations that the main quest sends you to. Anyone that they don't send you to, I think that's fair game. I think that's perfect. A lot of people haven't been to them, and they'll probably, you know, they'll see something new and that they might not have seen before. So I think that's good. I think it's probably really good to focus on those really hard to find locations. Let me think of them. The abandoned cryogenics lab, not to be confused with the cryo lab that you can get sent to in the main quest. There's a second one, has a very low surface profile. That one's very rare. I can think of a couple others. The Colony War Barracks, there's another one that's a very fun point of interest. They're not as common. I think that would be perfect as a location to pick for a mod itself. Just because I don't think many people have been there. But that's probably a lot of the feedback I'm going to give around like picking points out of the procedural generation and just using them as locations. I see this as a perfectly fine activity. I don't think you need to completely make brand new handcrafted locations to have a quest. I think you just need to focus on locations like this one in particular, where it's not particularly common, probably not a lot of players have been there. Your casual person that's looking for a quest to entertain them on like a Friday night or a Thursday night or something, and have like 2 hours of fun, perfect location. Stuff like the abandoned mine, the abandoned robotics facility, I would not pick those. Those are they're rather common within the main quest. Main quest is always picking those locations to send you to find artifacts. They're overplayed. You're gonna have you're gonna kind of like bore the player if you're picking locations that are possible for the for the main quest to pick as a location for an artifact or used in any shape or form within the main quest. What other locations would be good? The deserted, what is it? Freestar base. There's a deserted Freestar base. Not particularly common. That would also be a very good place to send people to, because I don't think a lot of people have seen that location. I think it would be probably, if I was a modder and I was looking to kind of take a little bit of a shortcut and fluff out a quest, and I didn't want to make a whole entire brand new location, I would focus on stuff that quests are not sending you to, because that's probably where you're going to get the most entertainment value. It's going to be more likely that the player has not seen those locations. But we're going to go ahead and move on to some of the more custom locations that this quest does send you to. So this is a new location, but the mod author, what did the mod author do? They took a pre-existing location and they changed it. Now I recognize it. I can recognize the structure of it, but like, tell me in the comments if you recognize what location is and tell me what it is, because I'm kind of curious if anyone else recognizes it. It's heavily altered. They've altered kind of like the whole theme of the location itself to be a location within this quest. Also, I should probably mention this mod does add a new enemy faction within it that has new enemies to deal with, but I think this is an awesome use of taking a point of interest within the game and refurbishing it to make something new. It was probably about halfway through this before I recognized what this location was, but I am very curious if, dear viewer, if you can recognize what location this is. Let me see. Should I give you a hint? It's located in a tri-star system, so a system that has 3 stars, and it's a unique location. I'm narrowing it down to 1, but very it's definitely been changed up a whole awful lot. So it's kind of difficult to recognize, but I know what location he was starting with when he created this location. Heavily edited, heavily altered. Some of the structures are the same. They've been repurposed a little bit, but you know what? Very good location, a lot of good firefights. I think this is perfectly fine if you want to take pre-existing locations that Bethesda has done and then shape them up and reuse them. Awesome. This whole entire location is a mashup of 2 different locations. One of them's a star station. it's the star. I'll tell you right now. It's the star station at the end of I forget what the quest's called. It's the Lopez Farm quest. At the very end of it, it takes you to a star station. But that's the beginning of this point of interest, and then it transitions into like this whole like cave system, which is located on an asteroid. Very cool, very cool. I loved what the mod author did with this. They took two different locations and they mashed them together. They changed all the interiors and they made it work seamlessly. So everything works out really well. Like, you probably are not going to recognize it. I will say the star station, I did. So let's get on to defects. I had a total of 2 defects. This one coming up here, we can hear the machine gun firing in the background. No one's firing a gun at all. It cut out after about 2 minutes or so. And there was another defect, I would say. There was a pathing delay in one of the NPCs where I had to sit for about 2 minutes before they started pathing to the location they were leading me to. Beyond that, I had no other defects in this whole mod. So I know very early on people were experiencing a ton of defects. I didn't experience many defects. I experienced 2 defects. They were minor inconveniences, and they kind of resolved themselves rather quickly. So I would call this mod like fixed at this point, beyond like a couple minor defects. But we're going to go ahead and this is here. My favorite encounter in the whole entire quest, and it's kind of like the ending battle sequence. Basically, you are going up against the enemy faction's fleet in kind of one final battle royale. It's very reminiscent of the Crimson Fleet questline in how that questline ends, where you're battling UC Sysdef. In this one, we're battling the enemy faction, and they're sending kind of waves and waves and waves of ships until at the very end, a legendary ship approaches, and you do battle with that, and then after defeating the legendary ship, you know, it's over, it's done. You go back and do the final wrap-up of the quest. But I guess if I absolutely... if I was going to give some kind of like feedback on this... and I'd call it more feedback than criticism than anything, because it's probably mostly me in my preference. I would have liked some kind of like mega structure to have to pilot around. Some kind of like obstacles that were obstructing me in some kind of way. Like an asteroid field, maybe a giant star station we're doing battle around, or something like that. It kind of gives a little bit more flavor to space combat. And I think in a large battle sequence like this, in particular, that is a lot of fun and a lot of enjoyment. So if I was going to improve this final battle sequence, that is one of the things I would do, is can we put some kind of like major obstruction, so that obstructs lines of sight, you have to fly around, etc. Either like a giant star station or some kind of like maybe an asteroid field taking up a portion of this battlefield. And then another piece that I would consider improving is the final battle with the legendary ship. You'll catch it at the end. Criticisms I have about that: the legendary ships, they typically move very slow, they turn very slow. To make up for this, majority of them in the game have a broad scope of field of fire. They can hit things above them, they can hit things below them, they can hit things around them. With this legendary ship, I noticed it had a very narrow field of fire, and a lot of blind spots. Like, majority of the time, I was not being shot at by that legendary ship because I was behind it or above it or below it. And this kind of ended up making that last battle with the legendary ship rather boring, because I was kind of just sitting in a blind spot, not really flying around. And I think that's kind of one of the things that makes the legendary ship battles fun, is that they have these broad fields of fire, and you kind of got to swoop in, shoot for a little bit, and then get out of the heat. In this situation, it was kind of like, get behind it and just all guns, fire, 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 fire. But beyond that, this was a very enjoying end sequence to this quest as a whole. But let's go on, and I'm just going to kind of summarize my full thoughts on this. Gameplay-wise, I think I think the author did a good job. There's a couple points where I think they could improve. For the most part, like with picking the procedurally generated points of interest, for the most part they did good. There was one pick, which I discussed earlier, could have picked a better point of interest to use within the quest because it's so commonly used within the main quest. But beyond that, majority of the picks were pretty good. They're pretty solid, not very common. They're a lot of the funner ones to do that I think probably a lot of players have never been to, especially people just picking up the game. The what I'd call semi-handcrafted locations, I think the mod author did a very good job of this, of combining and reusing Bethesda assets and then redressing them so that they're not really recognizable, and they're creating these new points of interest. I think this is a wonderful way to kind of flesh out content and minimize the amount of work needed to do that. I don't think a lot of players will recognize the points of interest that are being used to create these new locations. I mean, you can let me know in the comments if you recognize that one. I'm kind of interested if anyone does recognize that one, but I don't think many players will recognize it. It is, it's very good use of that to kind of make new locations. Now there is, I think there's two new locations that are completely custom in here. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think there's two that are completely custom. So there's a nice blend of using Bethesda assets just wholesale, just taking the procedurally generated location and just using that. A nice mix of taking and recycling what is already there and making it new, and completely making new locations. So nice blend of that to create a larger kind of quest chain. As far as like story structure or the story itself, voice acting, spot on, did a good job. I heard rumors that there is an AI voice in here. I didn't pick it up. I couldn't tell which one was the AI voice. So whoever did craft that AI voice, if it does exist in here, did a good job. You did a stellar job of it. I just see AI as another tool for people to use to basically leverage themselves beyond what they currently are. So I don't see that as particularly a bad thing. I mean, if you have an opinion on AI voice acting or what have you, please let me know in the comments. I think it's an interesting discussion to have. I use AI almost every day in my real life job, so I just see it as another tool. And honestly, it's a tool, like, if I was going to use AI to do voice acting, it would be terrible. But if I put that in the hands of a voice actor and gave them a rundown of how it works, they would actually probably be able to do a lot better job than I could, because they know how voice acting works. So I think it's a tool that we can use to leverage our skills to maximize things. As far as the story as a whole, I think it's very good. I do think it does clash a little bit with Starfield themes on, like, being hyper focused on like kind of like NASA and science, and this is mainly due to, slight spoiler alert, there is an alien drop within this mod where in the story there's aliens, and I think that clashes a little bit with kind of like the NASA theme, just because like, you know, the scientific exploration right now into our neighboring star systems and stuff is not really yielding any evidence of intelligent alien life. I mean, there could be the potential for non-intelligent aliens, but like we're not picking up any kind of like radio signals or any kind of signals on the electromagnetic field that seem intelligible. Yeah, we're not seeing any kind of like megastructures in our local area. Not that I think that intelligent aliens don't exist, I just don't think they're anywhere near us. But beyond that, like, that's probably me just being super duper nitpicky. Overall, I would say like the storyline's like a 9 out of 10 for me. It did have a lot of very stellar voice acting. The story itself was enthralling. You know, I kind of wanted to see what happened next for the most part. Overall, it's like the mod, 9 out of 10. What would I say its value is? You're getting a 2-hour quest line, probably 2.5 for most people. You're getting a companion with it, and then there's also a procedurally generated quest at the end as well. If I was going to put that up on Creations, I would probably charge $10 for that. I think the quest does have multiple endings, multiple different endings. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it did seem like it was structured to have multiple different endings. I did not play through the multiple endings yet. I probably will. So, like, overall, you're probably getting some replay value out of this. I mean, it's probably going to be like 10 hours of gameplay that you'll get out of this. I mean, with the companion and everything else. So I'd say it's easily like a $10 value. I think it's very quality made. At this point, there's very little defects. And, you know, beyond that, like, very enjoyable quest. As far as its launch, it's, you know, being heavily bugged. I think it received a fair bit of criticism at the time. That's kind of why I held off on reviewing this, because like I didn't want to particularly gangpile on someone. I don't think that's useful or helpful to people, especially like if you know this is like your second or third mod and stuff. I don't think that's useful. But I enjoyed this quest. I think it's underpriced at $6. One of the things I think Bethesda could do to make it easier for modders to do appropriate testing is create some kind of system where modders in particular would be able to shadow publish like a mod and hand out codes so people could test it on Xbox. I know that is a major problem that a lot of these modders have, is they're working on PC and they can't test it on Xbox before they kind of like launch it. So one of the ways that I think Bethesda could alleviate this problem is allow, you know, modders to do like a soft launch where, you know, not everyone can see it in the Creation Store, hand out codes to people so that, you know, you could pick individuals to go ahead and test it. And also you could do things like, you know, have someone make up a trailer for you or do a review on launch date. I think that would be kind of a smart strategy all around for Bethesda to kind of further Creations, is have the ability to do like a shadow launch or shadow publish and have the mod authors be able to hand out codes to, you know, different people to kind of go ahead and test if there's defects, does it operate on Xbox, what's going on, and then maybe, you know, have people do like a day one launch review, because you get to do that with other video games. I don't see why someone couldn't do that with a mod and have a very thorough review that is done appropriately on that launch day, to give, the consumers like a heads up, like who is this mod for, and let them, make an accurate judgment call on whether they want to purchase it. But if you found this review interesting, useful, or entertaining, give me a like and subscribe. I do appreciate them. And like always, enjoy the rest of your night.